Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles Treasury Edition. I am your host, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
With Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects you just heard are provided none other than the co-host, one agent _70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Which reminds me of another one that I need to get over to you if you don't already have it.
Another sound drop?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
So, you can find this here podcast on the Coast of the Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this podcast at your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the the Coast of the SoundCloud. So I almost had it. Cole's Leather Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You do a couple hundred episodes of this, and it still gets to you sometimes. I'll tell you. Plus, it's late. And of course, you can also find us recording live normally every Thursday night, because this is a special thing on a special night. Every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on either the YouTube channel of the Click Nation or twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. So yeah, as we said, this is a Treasury Edition. So what normally, if you're new to the podcast, Treasury Editions are usually reserved for movies and or TV shows that we deem need to get broken out a little bit more of a deep dive into into the inner workings of it. Spoilers will definitely be going on here. So if you haven't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, aka the Snyder Cut, you may want to wait till after you finish this to watch and or listen.
And here comes the spoiler bill if you made it even this far.
Exactly. So usually when we go to what'd you say?
What's that?
Oh, I thought you said something.
No.
Oh, usually when we're going to spoiler editions, Treasury Edition stuff, that's kind of what we do. Now, yes, we have been doing episodes on our regular shows for we will be doing Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we've done WandaVision and Mandalorian and stuff. But hey, sometimes it's a beat like that. And it actually just reminds me of that Mandalorian one I keep saying I was gonna do, but or rather couple that stuff together. But
to kind of create like a grand show, right? Like a solid show.
Yeah, like basically another Treasury Edition with all that stuff we'd already done during a regular show. But hey, that's a little bit of inside baseball. So before we get into the Snyder Cuts, let's go ahead and get an ad read out of the way.
Sure. Our first ad read of the night is for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Blue Apron, fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron, always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today.
Indeed. Yes, folks. Yeah. So this one
we're about to get into it, folks, and there's a reason why it's taking us a bit of time to get into it. One, I've had some technical glitches on my end because of experimentation with a new computer setup, which may or may not last. We'll see. But the real reason behind our, I don't want to say hesitance, trepidation may be a better word, but we are now about to roll into our review of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And it's something I don't think either of us really thought was ever going to happen until we got some news reports that HBO Max had taken it on and Snyder was actively filming some additional footage and that he had started putting together or had started to get a budget for visual effects that needed to be completed for certain scenes that were still left as part of his cut that were left over after the now infamous Joss Whedon Justice League theatrical cut. So once we started to hear all that was starting to fall into place, I think that we were resigned to the fact that this was coming. And now it's here. So we might as well get it over with and talk about it and talk about how it's changed our view of the Justice League as a whole, the movie experience as a whole, the DCEU as a whole, and Snyder's vision for the DCEU. So, do you want to start with some overall feelings before we get into it? Or do you want to just get into it?
I feel like we probably should just go ahead and get into it because my overall feeling. Well, no, let's go into a little bit of it because I feel like if for those people who just kind of just want that and maybe tune out when we get into the weeds of it,
Right.
yeah, we can go ahead and give a little because all I'm going to say is pretty much the same thing I have said during the course of the show. And yes, like everything Agent 70 just said is correct, but also we have spent copious amounts of time panning the fact that regardless of whether we're resigned for to recognize that this is a thing that's happening, even when they said, hey, it was going to be cut into 4 hours, 4 1 hour things, and then they backtracked on that, we've been pretty much panning this thing the whole time.
Right.
And while I do agree with Agent 70 about the fact that yeah, it kind of has changed our opinion on it a little bit, and we figured we'd go ahead and do this, it's hasn't changed that much for me personally because well, it hasn't. It hasn't. I will say that.
Right. And I would agree with that too. I don't have too much more to say about the movie. I think what has come out with regards to Snyder's vision for the next film or two involved in his potential Snyderverse, I think really cemented that I think Warner Brothers dodged a bullet and kind of cut their losses with the Justice League. So even though they've gotten some unfortunate fan or Snyder fan, even I think maybe
Yes.
that's more accurate. That Snyder fans have jumped out and tried to demand the restoration of the Snyderverse, and I don't think that's a good idea. But
Well, and also the Snyder Code wasn't a good idea, but those self same fans were spurring that on, and they ended up doing it. So, you're
right.
right.
Right. So what I would say is overall, I think it's obviously a slightly more cohesive movie in the sense that we get the origin stories and motivations of the Flash and Cyborg, so that actually makes sense how they fit into the film. But at the end of the day, that's also proof that DC never really took the time to develop these characters. And it's a shame that they were shoehorned into, even with Snyder's additional origins in this movie, they're basically shoehorned into this movie. And there's just not enough in this movie to really, to really, uh, even with the extended cut, to really give these characters enough time for decent character development. I know that the Flash movie was supposed to come after, but it's a shame that it didn't come before.
Right.
And and without
Or
having to harp
Aquaman.
on the fact that everyone compares them to Marvel, and everyone's going to say, myself included, that they should have taken more time to develop these characters before they decided to team them up.
Agreed. Yeah, and exactly. And that was kind of the whole thing leading up to Justice League in the first place. It was like, yeah, they pretty much just saw the culmination of what Marvel was doing with the Avengers stuff, and it's like, well, we gotta hurry up and do this.
Right.
That's basically what it seemed like, and it feels like kind of what it was. Which is why we got what we got, and why it turned out the way it did. And yeah, I agree with you. Flash should have come up first. There should have been that Aquaman movie should have come first. So there is even, matter of fact, you mentioned the Cyborg and the Flash stuff, but there's also one other character which we will get to when we're talking about it that they pretty much threw in here. That probably could have stood for some baking in another movie.
Gotcha. I absolutely agree. All right, so let's go through. It's not quite blow by blow, but it's close. So,
yeah, a lot of this I'm just gonna be reading from my notes, and they're not necessarily half-assed at best, because as I told Agent 70, I pretty much went scene to scene, just jotting down notes like I was live tweeting on Twitter, which I
right, and I was kind of jotting down thoughts as we were going along, and we were both kind of looking for a halfway decent blow by blow, but I think a lot of people kind of a lot of articles and pundits decided, or reviewers decided, to forego that because it's an old movie, and they decided to focus upon the things that were changed.
Right. And that going into that, it definitely there is definitely change. And by the way, since we are recording live, if anyone is out in the audience right now and has any questions or something, we will definitely feel that, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch. But we're just gonna kind of hit it off like that.
Right. And feel free to shoot us a message on social media via Twitter or even Instagram if need be, and we'll do our best to respond.
Exactly. Hashtag CBChron, or Comic Book Chronicles, or hashtag Comic Book Chronicles, but CBChron is probably shorter. If you want to go that way, we'll probably see it.
Right.
Or Roddykat, or at Roddykat, or at Agent_70. When we will definitely see them. All right, no more believer in the shit. Let's do this.
Yeah, I know. We've been beating around the bush. Isn't that terrible?
It is. But like I said, we did this to ourselves.
It's so true.
So first off, the first thing to note that as we've kind of been hinting at here, it is definitely a different movie. Is a different tone of this than the theatrical cut. As folks may or may not know, Zack Snyder had to leave for personal issues. The filming of Justice League, and Joss Whedon took over, and he added a whole bunch of his stuff to it. And you can kind of tell, if you watch it, a little bit of Avengers, you can kind of tell some similarities to that. And also, none of the Joss Whedon stuff is in this cut of the movie. So and I think someone asked me earlier today, is it worth the time to watch this movie? And I'm still saying that it's, one, subjective, and two, if you have even the remotest curiosity of what Zack Snyder's quote-unquote original vision was, because let's face it, like Agent 70 said, there's some stuff he pretty much did after the fact, and it shows. Very much shows, which is kind of one of my issues with it. But if you have any kind of scientific curiosity for that whatsoever, it's probably worth it. And I will go ahead and say, as far as initial impressions, like I said on last week's episode of this week's episode of Comic Book Chronicles, not much has been left on the cutting room floor. It goes on a little bit long and definitely needed some editing.
I mean, at the end of the day, the Snyder Cut is the result. Is what would happen if there was no actual editing.
Yes.
If there was no editor, there's nominally an editor probably in this. I haven't checked the credits,
right.
But ultimately that's what the Snyder Cut is, that there's no editor. But let's get back to jumping into this.
Yeah, basically, if Lucas had, if Lucas wasn't reined in on the original trilogy, this is probably what we would might have possibly gotten. So yeah, we start off. So, and I will go ahead and say this. So I did before, and this is actually kind of going into that. So it starts differently from the theatrical cut, and in fact, it doesn't kind of meet back up in with the theatrical cut for about 30 minutes.
Yes,
That
that is a good note. That is a good note. And what we get in those first 30 minutes are lots of slow motion, lots of character pathos,
and a lot
lots
of
of character development,
and
unfortunately.
yeah, and a lot of and basically one big callback to the end of Batman Superman.
Right.
And I said that one of the first things I say in my notes outside of the cut room throw thing is like, all this would not have happened if it wasn't for the fact that Superman screamed like a biatch.
No, it's true. It's true. I didn't recognize that until
Right.
I read some of the articles afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that Superman yelling out "Ah!" as he's dying is the supposed trigger for the mother boxes activating.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm gonna go ahead and get into that right now before I forget about it. The mother boxes. So if you know anything about DC's New World and Dark Side, which is going to come into play and the mother boxes and all that kind of good mess, these don't act like the mother boxes that you know about in the comic books. If you know about them, they don't ping ping ping.
They're not something that you strap onto your arm. That's not something that these mother boxes are. It's just weird. Like, why would Snyder do this to DC canon?
Right, exactly. And not only that, like they do call up boom tubes, or presumably they're usually around when a boom tube is called up.
Right.
Now, that's not always the case because again, once especially in the animated DC stuff, that doesn't always happen because the Justice League end up using Zeta tube technology, but the point is they don't boom. The boom tubes don't boom. They kind of look like them, but they don't sound like them. And I know somebody else kind of mentioned that on Twitter, and I was like, "You absolutely right. Like, boom, mother boxes don't ping, doggone boom tubes don't boom. What's wrong? What are you doing this for? You're already fucked up." But anyway,
yeah.
So,
No. Listen, I agree. That's pretty. That it's right on point. It's right on point. All right. Let's see where we have here. So, so you say that you don't think that it's all his original vision,
right?
You think it was a lot of the stuff is done post criticism?
I think the more of it was done, yeah, definitely more post than what he already had in his pocket.
I gotcha.
And I feel like you can see it in the scene, in certain scenes more than others, and especially with the reveal of another character. I feel like that stuff was probably like, well, I want to go ahead and do this, and some of the stuff, and even the reveal, just like I've already gone ahead and said, that even with the reveal of Darkseid and that kind of stuff, like a lot of that was pretty much, well, I just want to go ahead and do this, and like since I'm given this opportunity and I can bake the stuff back in, and nobody would be the wiser,
right?
That's pretty much all it is. And like I said, I did say like it is an original vision in the same vein of the Star Wars special editions kind of stuff. So there is that. They definitely, when it gets to, so in the beginning, like I said, we get cut back to Batman, Superman, and Superman dying, and the yell heard around the world, and which is kind of funny because I was just watching this video called Dragon Ball Z Abridged, which I would almost say Agent 70 should check out after he does his watching of Dragon Ball Z, because it's basically a parody of Dragon Ball Z, and they kind of did a similar scene like that with the yelling.
Okay.
And I think they did that like years ago, like well before
funny.
So it was kind of weird to see, because I just happened to be reminded of that earlier today, that happened. And I'm saying like, wow, that's kind of crazy. But anyway, so yeah, the Superman screaming and dying, it started all of this, and then they cut to Bruce Wayne, the part where in the theatrical cut, which we did see, but it's a little bit extended, that he goes to find Aquaman in whatever Iceland, Icelandic town he was in. But obviously, there's a little bit. And here's where we start seeing the first wankings of Zack Snyder, because if you remember the original scene. Oh, and by the way, I will go ahead and say this right off the bat. There's a lot of stuff that we saw in the trailers leading up to Justice League that got folded back in that we didn't get to see. Some of it for the better, some of it, yeah. But so the scene with Bruce going to the Icelandic town and finding Aquaman, like that's kind of branched out a little bit more. That whole so you talk like a fish line is cut out because that's weed and stuff, and you could tell because like Snyder's kind of going for a little bit more serious tone than the Whedon cut did, than the theatrical cut did. Down to even at the end of the scene, adding not only just so everything up to the part where Aquaman swims off is kind of pretty much there. If they had stopped there, great. But Snyder's decided to add some Celtic singing.
Or Icelandic. Because I thought they were in Iceland.
Yes, they were. They were. Yes, you're correct.
Is technically part of, I believe it's technically part of Denmark. But
right.
It's
and which
I mean, why? I hate to, folks, don't get me. Don't come after me for writing this in my notes. But like, why are these chicks singing when Aquaman swims away?
Right. Like, what was the purpose of that? There was no purpose outside of But it also starts off the theme, a whole underlying theme of the Snyder Cut. Long, lingering scenes that did not probably need to happen for as long as they did.
And accompanying music, which is just weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird.
Yes.
There's lots of moments where the music accompanying everybody from Amy Adams, Lois Lane to, and obviously they're trying to make a thing out of Wonder Woman's. But
they didn't, because it didn't come in at the same time.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah. Like even in that Wonder Woman scene, which is the next scene we're going to talk about, they pretty much did the same type of singing, just kind of kept coming back up.
What you call it? They call it in the subtitles. It was like slow chanting or slow melodic singing or something like that. It was it was so weird, so weird. Right. Anyway, next, so I'm hesitant to rely upon the wiki because who the hell's editing this, right?
Yeah.
But bottom line is, the Superman's death and his death throes, the scream while he's in his death throes, triggers the box's reactivation, which attracts Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf has apparently fallen out of favor with Darkseid. We find this out later, and he's looking to regain favor by gathering the boxes to form the Unity, right, which would terraform Earth into the likeness of their world, Apocalypse. That's the gist of it, although that's actually not told to us.
Right. Yeah, so basically the mother boxes end up being the Genesis device from Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, all right. So where are we now? Oh, are we in the hostage scene?
Yeah, because we did the Batman and Aquaman scene, and then we cut to the Wonder Woman scene, which pretty much, well, again, is extended, but it kind of like we get an additional shots of the bad guys coming into the place and starting, as opposed to what we got in the theatrical version. Not only that, the timer on the doggone briefcase is different because and again, I did watch a little bit of the theatrical cut before watching the Snyder Cut. So It was like 20 seconds on the theatrical cut, and it was a whole minute in the Snyder Cut. And even then, they pretty much took about the same time for the action scene, because there's a slow, lingering shot on Wonder Woman. Because so she basically, when she comes in after the one part, she lassos the dude, and we see a part of that in the theatrical cut. Then breaks through the door, as we do see in the thing, but we don't get the Wonder Woman thing yet. We still go back to that melodic chanting thing, and the slow, lingering shot of her Basically, it's like the Old Spice commercial. Cuts to the cuts to the bomb, cuts back to her, cuts to the bomb, cuts back to her, and all the while singing. And then once it gets down to like 7 seconds, then that's when she breaks into action like we see.
That's wild. I definitely give Roddykat props for having the wherewithal and the willpower to go back to the Whedon original theatrical cut for the comparison. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, I didn't do the whole thing. I just, but once I got to that part, a lot of it still kind of rung in, of what changed and what didn't change. So I was like, okay, I don't need, I just wanted to make sure what lined up, where it started to line up.
Right. Also, I have to add that I think it was much clearer in this version that Wonder Woman killed that reactionary terrorist without blinking.
Yes.
We get it. She's a warrior. We get it.
Although, even with that, and even with the theatrical cut, so yes, so pretty much, everything with the and there's another slow lingering scene with the in that we see it's part of in the theatrical cut where the head bad guy at the point starts shooting at the hostages. Well, not only do we still get that, but we get him. He has a pistol first this time. Starts shooting,
Right.
and then no, excuse me. He does single fire first, and then we see the slow him changing it to semi-automatic, and then slowly just raising up. So like I said, a whole lot of lingering shots. And of course, we do see the scene where Wonder Woman's saving them all and doing that kind of stuff and throws everybody around or whatever the case may be and all that. And it just lingers too long. And then going to what Agent 70 says, she kills the dude in the same way. Which again, if she is fast enough to deflect all the bullets, and break in the way she did, all she had to do is go in there and punch dude out.
Yeah, she could have disarmed him.
Yeah, instead of going with the bracelets.
Style.
Right. So we wasn't really sure in the theatrical cut what the reason was for her banging the bracelets together, but that is the thing with her in the cinematic universe, and she did it here. And again, like Angel 7 said, we definitely see that dude got pasted.
pretty much. All right. Okay, so
wait, one more thing about that part. So there was also, sorry, because when she's getting everybody up, there's a and again, I'm not going to go through every little single beat, but I think this is also one of those things that they're kind of might have been trying to set up something else, because at the end of it, there was this little girl that was in the group that was with them, and she was still sitting down, and Wonder Woman's like, "Are you okay, princess?" And then the little girl's like, well, how can I be like you one day? And then it's like, you could be whatever you want to be. So I was kind of wondering if that little kid's supposed to be like Tara Markov.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
A little on the young side, though.
True, but you never know how they were trying to go with that. Or even if she was actually a princess and she was just, and Wonder Woman was just saying that. We don't know, but that's kind of one of those things that kind of sets me off. It's like, yeah, he's definitely trying to set up some other stuff, possibly.
I get it. I mean, I don't think so, but I definitely see the theory and the idea.
Right.
All right. So after this, I think we go to Themyscira.
Correct.
And Lord, there's a lot of death and destruction on Themyscira.
Right. A lot of that still pretty much follows suit, but it is lengthier.
Yeah, because there's a lot. When I say a lot, as Roddykat mentioned, they added several scenes to this sequence where Steppenwolf is doing his level best to run roughshod over the entire Amazonian population to retrieve the mother box that they're guarding.
Yeah.
And one of the funny scenes, I don't remember if it's here or earlier, where they actually have a guard of Themysciran warriors who who are actively guarding the mother box, or they go into action when the mother box first awakens. And one of the Amazonians decides to approach the mother box.
I think that was in this scene.
Sword and shield in hand, and then drops the shield to have no defense so that she can touch the mother. And I'm like, what are you doing? I felt like I was in a horror movie.
And again, a long, lingering shot of her touching the mother box.
Right, like she's E.T.,
Right.
you know, and Elliot. But in all seriousness, all I could think was, all I could yell, I was literally yelling on my sofa, like, what are you doing? Don't touch it.
Right. But of course, this is when we see Steppenwolf comes in, boom tubes in, and shit gets real and starts going which was actually kind of a good scene. Like the Amazon scenes were still pretty good, even without that. But yeah, stuff like that was just kind of like, all right. And then there was that whole thing about Amazon, show them your fear. We have no fear, and you know that whole thing before the fight really started in earnest. And rip to those two Amazonians that tried to basically pulling a Hodor and got crushed for their
They probably
efforts.
did.
Yeah, there was no way that didn't happen. So yeah, so most of that scene pretty much was like ended up like the theatrical cut with, you know, again some changes. We see all right, so Hippolyta.
Hold that thought.
Go ahead.
Why doesn't Hippolyta actually try Gal Gadot's accent? Everybody else does.
Right.
Everybody else does. She doesn't.
Yep.
Anyway.
I agree. No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Which that's the whole thing. So yeah, Hippolyta pretty much leaves with the box, and a couple of things happen, and then she like I said, I don't want to go beat for beat, but pretty much a lot of actually no, because we didn't see that. Well, wait, did we see that part? No, this is where it starts to get hazy on that part.
The signaling, where they try to do the whatchamacallit?
No, we do.
They try to light the beacon of Amandine.
Yeah, no, not that part. We're gonna get to that in a minute. But no, when she leaves the site with the mother box, and she just kind of she gives it to she basically passes off to some other Amazonians, but she decides to kind of stay there by the cliff when the thing goes over the side.
No, they added that. That wasn't.
I know, but that part. Yeah. But I'm talking about the part where Steppenwolf actually gets it.
I think that was edited. I think part of that is in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, and because like I said, kind of stopped after that. After the initial scene happened, but yeah. So we get that anyway. Steppenwolf ends up with the box after a lengthy chase with the Amazonians, which was still a good scene. I'm also kind of surprised, like, wait, why did you not just kill Hippolyta? You could have just done that real quick, but just like, I got the box of what I need and I'm out. Which would have changed it a little bit more, so I'm kind of glad they didn't. But at the same time, like, you're right there.
Right.
So yeah. Speaking of Steppenwolf, and this is something that Age of 70 I was talking about after the program last time. Steppenwolf looks like he pretty much went and stole the destroyer armor from Thor.
It's so true. It's so true.
So
it looks so Snyder.
Yes, very much. We will get to that especially in another scene, which I just got reminded of. But so we cut to Star Labs, I believe, because in my notes I have Ryan Choi,
right,
and also say no booms in the tube, which I already said that already, so we don't need to go back and talk about it. So we get to Star Labs, and we get to meet up with Ryan Choi, which is an addition to this cut, and also one Miles Dyson, aka and you will know why I said that later on in this discussion.
I thought the same thing when I watched it too. I was like, it's Miles Dyson.
Yeah. Right. But oh shoot, I totally, what is his name? Why am I forgetting his name right now? Good goodness.
Oh, the actor?
Yes. Why am I forgetting? Because he's the GOAT. The man's
I have forgotten.
Crap.
Are you looking it up?
Joe Morton.
Joe Morton.
Joe Morton, the GOAT. Brother from another planet. Miles Dyson himself. Again, the GOAT. which I should have known. Well, obviously the theatrical cut, who would have thought what, we'll get to that. So we see Dr. Silas Stone, Victor's dad, going into Star Labs, and I believe when they were getting this is when they were getting investigated by the DOD, and the whole explanation about what Star Labs is. I believe that was pretty much this scene.
Yeah, and that was new.
Yeah, that was definitely all new. And then we cut to the scene where Agent 70 was kind of getting to, where the Amazons like to basically have this long scene where they grab the bow and arrow, and they long distance shoot an arrow to light a pyre, so that Diana could see it.
All right. And I think at this point they also go into they give us a bunch of exposition about the history of the mother boxes, and the effort to have to unite the clans, but to unite everyone on Earth to fight against.
Oh wait, that's later.
Oh, is it?
That's later. Yes. Oh, we're gonna get to that because there's definitely a couple of references in that one. But yeah, that's
all right. Oh, because did I skip over all the whatchamacallit, the Barry Allen stuff? All right, just go ahead.
Yeah,
I think because yours is like more step by step, so let's stick with your little running outline.
Yeah, and even in my notes, it's like, what scene, it doesn't really go out there. But basically, so the funeral for Pyre gets light, Diana gets wind of it, she gets over there some kind of way that fast, and she grabs the arrow, reads the arrow, goes down into the thing, and then gets a little bit of history. Well, she pretty much gets to see that, hey, Darkseid's coming, or we get to see a picture of Darkseid, and then it goes into another scene, and I believe it's another scene of Aquaman, because we get another lingering shot of him taking off his shirt and while he's on the pier and going into the ocean, where he's going to Atlantis, and I believe this is where he meets up with Willem Dafoe, Volko.
Yes.
And then they have a chat, and he's like, "Hey, take up your destiny," and it's like, I ain't know if I'm feeling that, But in this, basically, Volko's basically telling him, "Hey, you have a responsibility to not to the surface world and this world," and kind of alludes to possibly Aquaman, which came after the original the theatrical cut of this movie.
Right.
But still weirdly feels like wait, shouldn't it have come before if you're talking about this? But it makes sense because they're talking about his stepbrother and how he's ruling that kind of stuff. So that's that scene. And I have in my notes, didn't the Trident thing happen after this movie? But
different Trident.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is his mom's Trident. So then we get to cut to another scene, I believe, with Steppenwolf talking to the Sod after he tries to get the nuclear site set up.
Right.
And I have in my notes, why does Steppenwolf sound like Calabac circa the Super Friends?
I don't remember what Calabac sounds like in the Super Friends.
He was kind of like, oh, why are you, you kind of sound like Steppenwolf with because I guess there's the whole thing with Steppenwolf basically trying to get back into Darkseid's good graces in this, in the Snyder Cut. And he's basically always trying to please, do whatever he could to please Darkseid, and that kind of was like how Calabac was in Super Friends.
Okay.
So that's why I made that distinction there. So that's what it kind of felt like. Then I believe this is when, and I'm trying to remember the Barry Allen stuff, because I think somewhere in there we probably do get where Barry's we get Barry going to see his dad. We get Bruce talking to Alfred on his way back, from whatever town he was in at some point. And if we didn't, whatever, it's in there somewhere. And again, I think as someone mentioned online, we probably missed out on a good Batman and Alfred movie with them, because the banter with them is still pretty good in this,
Right.
Alfred's just as sarcastic as he wants to be, or whatever the case would be, and just talking to Bruce all kind of ways, and I was kind of loving it. But anyway, I think, and at some point we definitely do get to the Lord of the Rings /300 / definitely Lord of the Rings narration by Diana of the events of the people of Earth coming together against
Oh,
Darkseid
this
the
is
first
it.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, according to my notes, yes. And I pretty much have on that section, Zeus looks like Hercules here, which again, Zack Snyder did 300, so it kind of looks kind of like that. And
I was
that's
very confused at that. I was like, is that supposed to be Zeus?
right,
So
exactly.
I definitely feel that that particular criticism.
And I basically said, I know Agents haven't caught this too, how very Lord of the Rings it was of Dinah's narration, because it was totally the first part. If you remember the first part of Fellowship of the Rings, where just explaining the battle of Sauron in the first place,
Right.
it pretty much looked and sounded like that.
Pretty much.
All it, like I said in my notes, I said I have expected her to say, but there was one box to rule them all. Because that's pretty much how it played out, and we see the whole battle scene, and we see the allusion to the, well, not illusion, but we see the Green Lantern that was there, who didn't last that long.
Right. It's unfortunate too.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate.
And we see the ring fly off and never to be seen again. Which supposedly they were supposed to introduce John Stewart, I think, in this also at some point.
Well, we're jumping the gun just a little bit,
I know,
because that
but
was supposed to be another character that appears at the end, but we'll get there.
right, yeah, we'll
So
get that, but it's getting to that too also.
right. So now we're jumping to
I believe
a
this is,
flash, like
yes.
a flash scene where he's trying to get a job walking dogs and runs into a very hungry truck driver, and the truck driver can't can't pull over, stop the car to get a burger that he dropped on his dirty truck floor.
Yeah. Oh, not only
Right.
that, but we get introduced to we don't get her by name, but we get introduced to Kiersey Clemens's Iris West, who's looking pretty cute, honestly.
I was gonna say that's, but what ends up happening is this truck driver, because he can't get his burger,
Right, but no,
drives smack into Kiersey Clemens, who we were just introduced to.
right.
She's holding a lingering look with Barry Allen, and next thing you know, she's getting run over she's getting T-boned actually
Right.
at the intersection
Yeah, exactly.
by
Yeah,
this
like
truck.
exactly. Like, yeah, we see the scene of them two as he's going into the place, and they kind of meet. They lock eyes, and they look like how they do in the movies, like, oh, this is love at first sight type situation. He goes and do this thing, and then that happens, like what he just said. And then, of course, and some of this was in the trailer also. So, like I said, a lot of this stuff got cut out of the trailers that we have seen prior to the original Justice League coming out. Some of this, and so I think part of this definitely was. And there was a whole, I know you probably get this reference also. The whole T-boning kind of reminds me of the Matrix.
Kind of.
Because there was that whole crumpling. Oh, it's yeah, the highway scene where when Neo saves them, and Morpheus and the other guy just happens to hit the truck, and it just goes slowly start teetering over. Just again lingering shots.
Right. I was about to say, it's funny that you mentioned. I didn't even think of the Matrix, because I haven't seen those sequel movies in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
About how the Wachowskis really developed that. We really haven't seen that lingering stuff for a while, because
Mm-hmm.
and why is that? Is because there's so many heroes in this universe that possess super speed,
Right.
and it's the super speed that allows for those that interpretation of super speed that allows for those shots to take place. Whereas in the Matrix, obviously they're in the Matrix, so that's the reason why those shots would even be considered.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
All right.
I also have in my notes. Somebody watched Days of Future Past because of the Quicksilver scene. That's also reminiscent of where he's kind of going around. You know, he's going around at super speed and grabs. You know, he in this case he grabs a hot dog and does a couple other things and just stares at her way too intently as he's in the Speed Force and all that kind of stuff. So somebody would definitely watch also Days of Future Past, but also fuck Ezra Miller, Ezra Miller.
Okay. I mean,
Next.
you know. All right. Okay, so after this, we actually get a little bit of a Cyborg Origin.
Well, before
And
that, there was a scene. There was a scene that got cut out of the trailer with Bruce and Diana and their little awkward moment of them talking about trying to get the team together. But
okay,
but then we go into that.
right. You know, so much for not going beat for Pete.
You know, I mean, you know, I
so,
like I said, this is kind
because
of
it wasn't in the original. I get it.
exactly.
So you know, we essentially get this origin for Cyborg, which is helpful.
Yes.
You know, but at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where I still just disagree with the idea of Cyborg on the Justice League period. You know,
Here we go.
yeah, seriously, this should be you know, this should be part of a Teen Titans movie, and that should be that. But in any event, as Roddycat's notes say, you know, not sure if we needed the football scene, but it was good, and apparently was seen elsewhere.
That yeah, and I mean, obviously it's a football scene, just like I think I want to say there might have been a touch of that in the trailer, like there.
Okay.
This one's probably one of the ones I could remember, but I feel like I have seen a clip of the football scene elsewhere. Obviously, it's a football scene like you've seen in movies, in other movies. You know, it's setting up the fact that Victor Stone's a star football player, and it's slow lingering touchdown, his touchdown run in. Which that part definitely didn't need it, but the part after that was kind of needed. You know, they could have done a couple of shots here and there, cut to the stands, and we've seen that scene. Oh, that's what it was. So the scene where the part of the scene where Victor's looking up into the stands and sees his mom but doesn't see her dad, that was in one of the animated movies. That was in the Justice League animated movie. I believe it was Justice League War where Cyborg was introduced.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but there was pretty much a similar scene to that in that movie, except for the mom wasn't there.
Got it.
But yeah, so we get to see what happens with that whole scene and what happens with the mom, sadly, which is another defining Zack Snyder thing. I think it's like, yeah, just go ahead and kill a woman off real quick.
Well, that's already the second car crash in this movie.
Exactly.
So that's another thing. All right.
Next
moving
up,
along.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so we get we get lots of the Cyborg origin, and then we have
oh right.
Barry being approached by Bruce Wayne to join the Justice League. This is what that meeting with Bruce's meeting with Diana was about before. And one thing that bothers me about the timeline that they're trying to establish for some of these characters is that why go with a younger Barry Allen? Like, why go with a Barry Allen that is somewhere around college age? Because if Cyborg is a young person who's somewhere around college age, then who is the audience's point of view character?
Right.
And then how does he create this suit that, while he's still in school? Where does he have the resources to make this thing that Bruce Wayne is like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is the stuff they make the space shuttle out of. What?
Oh right, yeah. I guess because that was a part I didn't. Yeah, again, that was a part that was in the part.
I bumped on that heavy. I'm like, all right, so he's probably stealing it with the super speed. But come on.
Right. Yeah, and also worth noting, there was a part that was also cut out of the trailer where Bruce is throwing the batarang and Barry's like looking at it slowly, and all that whole oversimplification of his powers and all that kind of stuff came in.
I thought that was in the original theatrical cut, though.
No,
I remember that specifically.
not all of it. Not all of it.
Oh, not all of it. Also, they extended it. Oh, well,
Right.
that's what else is new with the Snyder cut, right?
Right.
So,
But also they took out that scene where Bruce and Alfred was talking about Barry before that scene happened, and for some strange reason I have in my notes gorilla sign language, which they happen to bring up in that scene or something like that.
all right.
I don't know
Oh,
why.
I'm sorry. We skipped over Cyborg stealing money from somebody to give to somebody else.
That's what. Okay, that's why I had that in my notes. Yes, because I do have that in my notes, but I couldn't remember what scene that was from. Yeah, so we get a little bit more character development with Cyborg, and he just so happens to pick a particular person, um, and basically put some stacks of money in there. And I think this is where we first get to see Cyborg in cyberspace, or is it in his version of cyberspace, basically? And we see him in just dressed as Victor Stone in his regular gear. So I guess in the cyberspace, he's not all metaled up and whatnot. So that's the thing. And yes, all of that the Age of Saviors just happens. But then from that we get the Barry and we get the Barry and Bruce scene, and then they go off because the whole I need friends thing line from the trailer is there. And,
Right.
And of course, there's a product placement for Benz because when they drive off, just got this super state of the art Benz that Bruce is driving, which obviously he's got money. I thought that thing was going to turn into the Batmobile.
I thought so too. I was disappointed that it was just a regular car.
Mm-hmm. And then looks like we get a meeting of. I think we get the scene where Alfred and Diana was doing Diana was making tea at some point, and she was in the Batcave, and then she goes to meet with Victor, who I think had just buried the mother body. I can't remember if that happened around this part, but we knew he had it, and we knew that because that was kind of the thing they touch on this whole thing. And he meets up with Diana, and that scene's a little bit different from the theatrical cut, but it's still a scene with them.
Right.
And we see him with a big duffel bag. Oh no, we see him with a big duffel bag, and we find out has the mother box that they had in it that he goes to bury in the next scene.
All right.
We get more.
Next?
Ryan Choi back at Star Labs. We find out how Victor's dad Silas gets caught by the parademon. Then we cut to GCPD, where we are farmers. Bump, 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 bump. Gordon is talking to one. Wait, actually, no, we don't. Yeah, Crispus Allen. Which again, this is definitely something they kind of just put in here. I don't know if he was setting up a GCPD movie or whatever the case may be, but that scene happens, and then the bat signal trailer from the theatrical cut kind of sort of happens, where Gordon goes up and talks to Batman and the rest of them, I think. But also there was a little bit different because again, a part of that was cut because the Flash was like, "Oh, they just left, huh? That's weird," and he zooms off, and that whole thing happened from the trailer.
Point, did they talk about how long Batman's been active? Is this the scene? It's a little after.
If they did, I don't remember. That's the one part I don't remember.
Right, they talk about him being active for 20 years, and I'm like, damn you, Snyder, why are you just married to the whole Dark Knight imagery?
Right.
Yeah, you could at least have kept them somewhat contemporary to each other.
Right. I feel like I remember that happening, but I don't remember when that happened in this. Because I probably would have written it down.
I didn't go completely, beat for beat.
Right.
But that's one of my thoughts. I wasn't sure exactly when they brought that up. But moving on.
Right. Steppenwolf invades Atlantis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was new.
Yeah, that's definitely new, and that whole torture thing after that. Aquaman meets Mera at this point, which again I'm blending Aquaman at this point because I could have sworn that happened like they actually met in Aquaman.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, and if I'm not, no, I think they do meet in Justice League because one of the comments that I saw, and speaking of accents, remember I was talking about accents before, they actually Snyder actually has Mera speak with a British accent here, whereas she's got a regular English, a regular American accent
right.
in I guess, the original. So
right. So then we cut back. I guess we either cut back or no. We definitely get to where Batman and meets up with the on top of the GCPD building. And this is before they go down and yeah, we get that whole scene where they figure out where the people are being held hostage, and that whole thing. And then we get that "I'm real" when it's useful line when they finally get down in there. So that whole scene, and then the battle under the Gotham Bay or whatever the case, that whole scene kind of happens, but with a little bit of a difference because well, actually, maybe I can't remember if that scene was that much different or not, because there was definitely some difference. There's some stuff that was added into it, like a little bit more with Steppenwolf and torturing the people. But for the most part, that scene just kind of happens, and you know the whole Justice League is down. I mean, not Justice League. They're down there doing this thing, and there's a and they cut out some stuff from the theatrical trailer because I do recall there being a somewhere around this where Flash was like, I just hit people, you know, I just running really fast and hit people. I think it was around that line, around the time. But anyway, and this is when the woman thing kicks in. I don't know why I made note of that because I do remember it wasn't in the scene before that. I mean the scene right. Like this whole time, which I don't know what time frame it is, but it definitely kicked in now as opposed to the hostage scene. And they're still doing the battle and all that kind of stuff. And then you know Aquaman comes in and so like that whole scene happens. But they did keep the one part where Flash kind of gets the sword for Diana. That part from in the theatrical version, so that's at least still from there if you remember it. And then we get a little bit more on Darkseid because I think it cuts back to Steppenwolf finally getting to talk to Darkseid. And I think I make a note here for the no ping ping thing and Cyborg origin story, which I think we get a little bit of, oh yeah, we get a little bit of that because that's when they're all in the Batcave talking.
So we also get the reveal of the anti-life equation.
Yes.
And it's not explained to us. We're expected to just understand that it's something bad and that Darkseid shouldn't have it, and apparently has some ability to allow him to control. It gives Darkseid or whoever has the anti-life equation the ability to control sentient life. I think that's how they explained it. But it's still weird that they would just drop that on us with just very little explanation.
Yeah.
You know,
and
it is.
Yeah. And mind you, so I have in my notes because this I have in my notes that this is where we get to the other Justice League story after we start getting to the other Justice League storyline, which I'm talking about Superman coming back to life because this is when they start formulating that plan,
right?
Which wasn't in the theatrical cut. But we also get another scene, which for almost fairly certain was not with Martha. Well, and we'll get to why that wasn't because it's setting up another character, which is like just kind of got shoehorned in here. It was a scene where Martha Kent and Lois Lane are talking, and Martha's like, "You need to get back out there. The world leaves Lois Lane, you know, you know, you need to get back there and get to work." And so we get that scene, and at the end of the scene, we see Martha leaving Lois's apartment. And a reveal of one Martian Manhunter. Well, excuse me. We see Harry Lennox, who was also in the I think he was also in Batman and Superman. He was actually. We saw him,
general, yeah.
Yes, as a general. So we see Martha turns into him, and then turn into Martian Manhunter. So setting up the fact that he was indeed Martin Manhunter, like they actually had alluded to. In Batman Superman, because I think they said they had cut out that part there too, or it cut out that part of that there too.
Right. So this is one of those. Honestly, when this happened, I was like, "Wait a second. I don't know if have you ever seen oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it just slipped my tongue. I was just thinking of it's not How It Should Have Ended. What's the it's a YouTube show.
I know what you're talking about, but it's pretty much like that. What you're saying. I know what you're talking about.
Why can't I think of the name? I don't want to describe their thing and then not cite to them.
No, I think that's what how it should have ended. I think that's what it is.
No, No, but it's another honest trailers.
Oh yeah, those. Oh yeah, the dude with
Thank
the
you,
voice.
Brain.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Brain, for finally kicking in. I know it's late and dinner was a long time ago.
Oh, at
So
least you had
uh,
dinner.
what I was gonna say is um the honest trailer for Endgame, right?
Mm.
When they talk about the scene in Endgame where they cut to the Ancient One,
Yes.
right? And they're like, go downstairs, they need you, right? And I'm thinking, Martian Manhunter, you're here, they need you, what are you doing?
Right.
So just slinking around, sneaking up on Lois?
And why? And again, I think I may have said this to you after last week's show. Like, why and how would he even know about? I mean, yes, he's telepathic. I get that, but how or why would he even know or care about what Lois is doing?
Unreal.
So yeah, that whole like I said that whole scene was like what? Because at first I was like, okay, yeah, sure, Martha probably would have gone to see Lois at some point. You know, I guess maybe, I may have noticed she wasn't doing her job. But yeah, what? Why? Martian Manhunter? Yeah. Anyway, I think I make a note here about did we miss out on a good Batman's movie? Because I think there was another Batman Alfred scene.
Okay.
Star Lab. We cut back to Star Labs and back to the Caper. Oh yeah, so we get to the Caper where they go to steal the where they go to bring Superman back. And they go down there into the quote unquote the Superman ship, as they say. And I think we get a cut of Zod in one of the caskets. I'm not sure what the hell that was about. And for some strange reason, I also the movie should have ended.
Did we skip over that whole crawler scene that I hate?
Yeah, that was in the when they were under the Gotham Bay. Like I said, all of that was pretty much in the theatrical cut, mostly.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Because I always hated that stupid crawler thing. But anyway.
Yeah, it was kind of a little ridiculous. And then Cyborg took over, and Alfred, and the whole thing. Yeah, that stuff was that was all in that one scene.
Right.
Yeah. So like I said, we're back at the Superman ship. It just so happens that they're going to activate the mother box, and because again, this is where they start getting to the part of the original cut where they would have been gone through, and the movie should have ended by now, as I have in my notes. And for some strange reason, I have a note here that says, still no Lex Luthor except for the cameo in the beginning, and I have a timestamp as to what the time was. So it's 2 hours and 32 minutes where we are right now at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Lois goes back to work, thanks to Martian Manhunter, and I guess she doesn't go back to work, but she pretty much ends up being where she was in the theatrical cut, near the Superman ship, just so happened. But the only difference is the theatrical cut had it to where that was part of Batman's plan. Apparently it was not in the original version, as we were going to see, because the whole thing with bringing back Superman happens. Like the whole Flash jumpstart thing was Snyder's idea, apparently. Then it jumps into something I did not expect to see, but they did kind of have, or kind of get alluded to in a different way in the theatrical cut, an apocalyptic dream sequence. Because as soon as that jumpstart thing happens, it looks like the world pretty much, there's like this whole digital thing goes over to the world, and the mother box even says like, "Oh, the future is written." And then we get a scene which we have seen before in Batman Superman. I'm pretty certain, where Batman is in the trench coat and the goggles and stuff, and
the nightmare scene. Yeah,
exactly. So we get that, and we basically get a whole ass scene of Darkseid and Superman. Now that I think about it, fucking up the world. We get Omega beams though.
Yeah, we do get Omega beams.
So I was kind of hyped to see that at the very least. And then it says, as I have in my notes, we basically pretty much seen an alternate Injustice ending or beginning.
Yeah, that seems like at least an inspiration for where Snyder was going.
Right, and we still get more of that, which is kind of ridiculous, because I can't remember if it happens now or at some point, but we're talking about the Lois is the key, that whole thing that got cut out of the that was in the theatrical cut, because it was that whole scene where Batman's just sitting there and he sees Barry from the future.
Exactly.
That got cut out of this, but we still get allusions to that. But anyway, jump starts lingering. They do the thing. Superman wakes up. They go and a lot of this is still following the theatrical cut. So that whole scene with them fighting Superman has still happens, and the whole thing with Lois being the one to snap him out of it basically still happens, but it kind of happens a little bit differently.
Yeah, the sequence is definitely different, and how it happens is different.
So
and even after they fly away, that whole scene is different.
Exactly. You know, oh, and we did kind of miss a part where apparently Alfred made some gloves, some energy dissipating gloves, which end up coming in handy in that scene.
Right, because Superman's literally trying to heat vision Batman to death, and he's got gloves to absorb the energy. He's like, with like this is better than vibranium,
right? Because even in that underwater under the bay thing, Alfred's like, "Hey, my gloves work," and Batman's like, "Celebrate later. Give me the crawler." Or do now. Yep. So, and now. Again, movie should have ended well before now, but we get more because I even have a note was like, oh right, Steppenwolf, because Steppenwolf comes in and gets the mother box, which I don't recall if that played out like the theatrical trailer, but whatever. And this is where the whole Joe Martin thing comes back into play, because freaking why did they do this? Miles Dyson happens again. Joe Morton had to die, so
no reason.
For no freaking reason.
No reason. It's like, wait a second. So here's the thing, right, ladies and gentlemen, right? So they contrive a plot to have Joe Morton die, but in doing so, it's a sacrifice because he superheats, and this is another stupid idea. He superheats the mother box so that they can track it. Like they can't figure out where Steppenwolf is going.
Right, and granted we did. Right, and granted we didn't get that part, and they just knew where he was, you know, in the theatrical cut. So, but this is pretty much to contrive the reason as to why they have. And again, there was no reason for him to have to be in that situation.
Satellites. Yeah. You know, Wayne's got a bunch of them in space. He makes a point of saying something about it in this movie.
Exactly. So it's ridiculous. But yeah, so yeah, Miles Dyson happens again for no reason, but Cyborg is in there, so that means it's like, oh, well, this happened. That happens so that he could kind of start to move on with the hate he had for his dad, and you know, originally for making him the way he is, because that also, like I said, the character development on that kind of happens in this. Yeah, it says still didn't make any sense why he had to die. Anyway, so they all go back to the Batcave where they has to plan to go and attack the nuclear silo. We don't get any of the Russian family, by the way, which is in the theatrical cut. Because you remember they made the whole thing of kind of showing that whole family and then showing Barry and Superman, you know, saving them at some point during the theatrical cut. We don't get none of that, so whatever. Right. So yeah. The farm scene with Superman and Lois and Martha is still relatively intact. I think that might have been extended a little bit.
Yeah, it's different. It's actually different because I think they come together differently with Martha.
I think that's that part.
It's a slightly different sequence. Yeah, I've seen the comparison, but at the end of the day, it plays out the same.
Right.
It has the same effect, but it has a slightly different sequence to it.
Mm-hmm. We get another callback to that flash forward, which we don't get to see in this, and also another potential Injustice reference, because I believe this is where Lois is the key thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they're making plans, and you know, I don't know why I made that note about what Alfred is drinking, because I think that's when that earthquake happens. That is when that happens. Yeah, that's when the earthquake happens. When I think when Steppenwolf activated the third mother box. And it needed time to do with this thing. So I also have in my notes, I don't like Barry. The more Barry speaks in this version, the less I like him, because he was definitely doing a lot of more talking than he did in the original cut, which maybe that was merciful. Anyway, Superman suits up. You know, after that, we get him in the ship, and you know, that kind of stuff. We get Bat Tumbler. We get the whole slow Avengers team shot because they're doing the whole action scene. And we see, Batman in the tumbler, and we see the other folks just flying and running next to him, and it just slows down. Like that one scene in Age of Ultron. You know the one.
Of course.
But the Aquaman surf scene that still happens, and more actions because they're pretty much attacking the base. Like I said, Batman kind of does his thing in the beginning of it, and he was like, whatever you see, da 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 da. But the action scene actually wasn't bad. It might have gone on a little long in spots, but it was still pretty good action scene. I kind of groaned at that slow motion shot though.
I agree. Yeah, I mean they changed the assault.
Yes.
Because they take out the whole. Do you have it in your notes here? They take out the whole "Are you suicidal?" bit.
Oh yeah, I don't have it in my notes, but they did do that.
They took that part out, which I appreciated. They basically kept. That was one of the few things where I was like, oh, you know what? That was actually a good call to not have that part in, because I thought that was that was a bad part of the original Whedon theatrical cut. It's like, are you suicidal? What are you doing? He's like, no, I'm gonna go, ram into stuff. I'm like, that's your plan?
Right. Now the only allusion to that we kind of get is like Aquaman is on top of the bat tumbler, and he pretty much says, "You really are crazy."
Right.
He doesn't do the dress like a bat thing all that much too, which that's kind of a disappointment. But that was a Whedon thing, probably more so than not.
I don't remember it more than once, but like I said, I've shied away from ever watching it again. So
right.
All right. Where are we now?
Let's see. Still in that whole scene. So part of the plan was Bear runs in circles, like he does to get up enough energy to touch Cyborg so they can become one with the Unity, which doesn't go off fully as planned, because apparently, and I saw a meme on this on Twitter, which was kind of funny. One of the parademons actually gets a shot off at Barry. And I think as I say, we do see like Darkseid. We get a portal of Darkseid and Granny Goodness and Desaad, because the portal starts opening up. So it was like, oh yeah, we can see basically an invasion army and Granny Goodness. So we didn't get to see Granny Goodness in the first one. Didn't see Calabac, which actually another thing that brought me in the mind to that whole Steppenwolf thing. But then, I say here in my notes that they pretty much made this into a Barry moment, because I thought they honestly was going to go into, well, Barry's going to be the one to sacrifice his life, just like they have in the comics. And it almost kind of went that way, but it didn't. Let's see. Then we get some more Cyborg stuff with that. Again, we think we get a Flashpoint reference, possibly. The Superman Cyborg. Yeah, Superman kind of comes in at the last second and helps out. And then that whole Superman Cyborg thing for the theatrical cut actually happens. They set up, which again, they do the thing. They have their superheroic moment, triumphant superhero moment. So it looks like there's a setup for Justice League 2, because it's a long-ass lingering shot, and there's a conversation between Desaad and Darkseid. Desaad's like, I told you Steppenwolf will fail.
Right.
That whole thing happened right then, and I'm like, shouldn't this movie be over by now, or shouldn't that have been like an end credit scene? But no.
Did we mention the part where Superman is all black everything now?
Did not, but yeah, he definitely, when he gets suited up, he suits up in, because we didn't see that part either. When he goes into the Superman ship, or when they go into the Superman ship originally, because Superman's body is there, the ship kind of opens up, and we see bunches of Superman suits and whatnot. Well, Superman actually goes back in there when he goes alive, and that's the part I forgot, actually. He goes back in there, and we hear Jor-El talking. Well, I believe some of it's from the original Superman movie.
Oh, we hear Jor-El, and we hear
Pa Kent.
Oh no, we hear Pa Kent. No, it's Jor-El from Man of Steel. It's Russell Crowe.
Is it, man? Okay. So, I thought because there was one part in there that seemed like it was from the original thing, but which was Brando, but still.
Right. So I definitely made a note of that. I said, it just reminds you how stupid it was to kill off Pa Kent. But anyway.
Yeah. But he's going through there, and he's getting pep talk by, getting pep talk by his dad, and then we see kind of a lingering shot of him presumably getting the suit that he ends up getting, which is the black suit. Now we'll get back to this.
Right. So sorry about that little interlude there.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So where are we now? So we got the triumphant pose. We're in
Yep.
the epilogue. So there's a weird moment in the epilogues. I say epilogues
Yes.
because there's a bunch of them, right?
There's
So
like 3 of them.
did you notice? I see it not in. I don't see it in your notes, but did you notice that? And again, this relates back to something I said earlier. Snyder's dying to do Dark Knight Returns because you see the
Yeah.
tank
Mm-hmm.
from Dark Knight Returns in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, wait, why does Batman at this point need this Dark Knight Returns tank? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. I did notice that. I did definitely notice that, but no, I don't have it in my notes.
But I'm saying, like, that was just, when I saw this cameo of the Dark Knight Returns tank, I'm like, just stop. Just do the Dark Knight Returns movie. Just do it if that's what you want to do.
Right. But instead we're getting Matt Reeves' Batman. Which and I know
Okay.
No, I was about to say we were supposed to get a part Affleck written and starring Batman movie, but of course that we all know that that's not going to happen at this point for whatever odd reason.
Right. All right. So now we are neck deep in these epilogues.
3 hours, 34 minutes in.
Goodness.
I made a point to timestamps at this point. So yeah, for some reason I have Victor's part mother watch because of course that's how he got this thing in the first place, and something brought that up again. Right. Oh right, because he goes back to the apartment where he had crushed the recording of his dad because obviously his dad's dead now, and he listens to the whole thing, and we get like a whole montage of what the of everybody doing whatever they're doing. And possibly getting set up for Aquaman in the process because of that scene didn't make any sense either. Because we see Aquaman meeting up with Volko and Mira, but then just was like, I gotta go see my dad, and then hops on the truck and just bounces.
Right, that was weird.
Which seems counter to what happens in Aquaman.
I don't remember Aquaman that well, but I guess I'll go with what you say.
Like I say, it seemed like that. It may not be. I'd have to watch it again. But I was like, that some of that doesn't make any kind of whole part doesn't make any kind of sense. But maybe I don't know. I mean, not counting the fact that he went to go see, because we do definitely see him, with his dad at the beginning or somewhere near the beginning of Aquaman. But the whole meeting up back with Volko and Mira thing. We potentially get a Ryan Choi set up because we see him. He's the director of Star Labs at this time, and they mentioned him by title. I was like, yep, director of nanotechnology. So we could have gotten a Atom movie out of this.
Right, and we talked about that in our show this week. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because there was an article about something else was going to happen about that.
About putting the Korean guy in China.
Yes.
But yeah.
Also, we get another scene that sets up the Hall of Justice.
Oh, and we're gonna see that again too.
Mm-hmm. Which actually that just reminded me of my background that I almost went with, but that's fine. Whatever. Barry gets a job, goes back to talk to Ra's al Ghul's dad again. The whole about the bank scene is still intact for the most part, but kind of lengthened a little bit where they go back to the farm and it's now back under Kent control. We get Victor's superhero takeoff, which was a weird scene to have, but I'm like, okay, sure. We get another bat signal and stoic poses. We get Flash anime run again. Like I said, all of this is kind of within the montages within the kind of the montages that are being narrated by Victor Stone.
Right.
And
that was new. That whole Vic narrating it at the end, right?
Or Silas narrating. Sorry, not Victor, because it was Joe Morton talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And again, I make the note of and where it should have ended. Right here, we get the Superman, we get Clark Kent in the city, going into an alley, ripping open the shirt to reveal the Superman symbol, I believe still in the black suit.
Yep, still all black everything.
And 3 hours and 40 fucking minutes in, still not ended. It could have ended right there. What do we get?
We get
the end.
the original, the original end credit scene.
Yes, we get the original end credit scene with which I'm still on the fence about this Luther. I don't know, Jesse Eisenberg. But yeah, we get the whole thing where we see, which that was a whole other thing about that, because the guard that goes to get Luthor is like, why did he leave the door open? I think I even made a note about that. Yeah, I did. I made a note of that. I was like, why did you leave the door open? We see, this inmate laughing maniacally, almost like the Joker, at this. But then we cut to the end credit scene where Luther's on the boat and talking to Deathstroke. But we get a little bit more to it because Luther gives Deathstroke Bruce's identity up, which was supposed to set up the Batman, the aforementioned Batman movie, which we will never get.
Right.
And then that whole thing, and again, still doesn't end. Because we go back to the nightmare apocalyptic dream, or not dream, it's apparently it is actually the future, which is again setting up either one and or two other Justice League movies. We see Batman, Mirror, Deathstroke, Cyborg, Flash, and then, oh my God, why the freaking Joker, Jared Leto's Joker. And then there's a whole reach around joke. It was like, oh God, this is why I hate this goddamn version.
Yeah.
So we get that, which is again possibly another. Oh, and then like they're basically there and they're running. They're hiding out, and Superman comes down, and that pretty much ends that scene because it goes into Bruce Wayne waking up, and he's in his house or in a house. And here's another weird ass scene because it brings back.
I was about to say before you continue, one of the things that's referenced here is the death of a Robin.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah.
In this nightmare version, it's in your notes, but
yes,
I
it is in my
circle
notes.
back to it very quickly because Roddykat, much like myself, is trying to figure out if this is actually a Jason Todd reference as it would be in the comic books.
Right.
You know what it is? It's not.
Oh,
Snyder's
because of that.
Come out and said that it's Dick Grayson.
Okay.
What an idiot. What an idiot.
Which, first of all, one should make sense because, like, wait, why would you set up Jason Todd before you even introduce Dick? Or, before you introduce Dick. So that makes a little bit more sense, but still stupid.
Yes. Unreal. Unreal. Like, why would you cut off all of the potential franchises by killing off Dick Grayson?
Right. And again, we also get another injustice set up because I believe the whole Lois is the key hold in the nightmare scenario thing, which, again, like we said earlier, the Darkseid and Superman pretty much took over. And it ends off, like I said, with Superman ended up finding this ragtag team of whoever's.
Right. So we get to 3 hours, 59 minutes, and 49 seconds as Roddykat was kind enough to note, and take it away.
Yep. So we get that. Oh yeah. Again, like I said, the whole reach around line that the Joker says is so stupid. Oh God. Why? So yes, we get to this conversation, which I think is actually the last scene of the movie. Yes, it is. Where Bruce wakes up, like I said, goes outside because apparently he senses something or something, and Martian monsters just so happens to be outside of his window. This is Bruce. Of course he wouldn't be phased, but just happens to have a conversation. It's like, hey, I'm Martian. Some stuff. That whole thing is not over. You might still need some folks or whatever the case may be. And hi, I'm Martian Manhunter, and I'll be around if you need me. And Bruce is like, all right, and just rolls back inside.
Right.
And that is what freaking ends the movie.
Unreal.
I'm like, what are you doing? What was that whole scene? That was a whole awkward ass scene because Bruce is just standing there like, okay, yeah, right. Like I just want to go back to bed. Like, all right, yeah. Like, all right, nice to meet you, and whatever else he said, because he said something, like, hey, ain't no big deal. I'm like, all right, peace. And then Martian Manhunter fans off, and he goes back into the house, and like, that's it. And I'm like, really? At 3 hours and 53 minutes, or in some, I just forgot I wasn't even worried about the seconds anymore. I was like, fuck it, this is it. And this is when credits roll, and we get a Leonard Cohen cover of something while this whole thing. And I sat through the credits thinking, like, is he really going to be stupid enough to do a whole other credit scene after this. He doesn't. And that's it.
That's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah, I did say in my notes that Bruce wakes up to more movie.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh geez.
All right, so there's a couple of things to think about when we get to the end of this movie, and really the part that bugged me was the whole nightmare scene,
Yes.
and how Snyder has gone on to talk about. I described this as kind of like a postscript in my notes, that Snyder has gone on specifically in an interview by Anthony Bresnikan with Vanity Fair, where Snyder shows that neither Warner Brothers nor Snyder had perfect visions for the film. According to Snyder, Martian Manhunter should have been Jon Stewart, but Warner Brothers said they had plans for Jon as a Green Lantern. Where are they? But the story Snyder had planned involved Bruce Wayne. Oh, so did you know about this? Did you read the interviews I sent to you?
I was kind of skimmed it. I didn't read the whole thing.
Right. So the story Snyder had planned going forward into the next sequels, involved Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane falling in love with each other when Supes was presumed dead.
Okay, that part I did see. Yeah.
Right, and this would have been part of a second Justice League movie. This is where the pregnancy test came in, right? And part of the movie would have revolved around the plot to make Batman sacrifice himself to save Lois, which is something he fails to do when Darkseid invades, which is what makes Superman give up and fall prey to Darkseid using the anti-life equation.
Also,
And
weirdly sounds like an Avengers callback with the whole you never want to make the big plays.
Oh gosh, yeah, you never want to make the big sacrifice. What do you oh my gosh. So Supes wants to take revenge on Batman for failing to protect Lois,
and that's where that last.
This is why, right? And this is why Flash shows up in BVS to say the key is Lois Lane. I'm like, oh my God, my head hurts.
Which again sets up a goddamn would have set up an Injustice League movie, an Injustice movie so perfectly. We said that when we even talked about the theatrical cut. They could have gone and done an Injustice movie from this, but no. Now, granted, that whole part with the whole pregnancy and whatnot aside, that would have been messed up because if they had stuck with the Joker killed Lois, you know, that would have been good enough.
Right. So what ends up happening is that they, what Snyder wanted to end up happening was that, if Batman sacrifices himself, then the result will be Superman doesn't go bad. But come on, we kind of know what happens in the time heist. You don't change the past, you just create a new future.
And they could have opened up the multiverse.
Exactly. So what Snyder's plan is that the result would be that Superman doesn't go bad, and the big fight told in flashback exposition by Diana, by the groups of the Atlanteans and the Themyscirans and the humans banding together to defend the Earth would be repeated with would be recreated in modern times, and that was where Snyder intended to take the story. And the capper to this would have been that Lois and Bruce's kid would have been born with no powers to later become the new Batman. Lord have mercy, Snyder.
Yes, and if you're watching the video, you can see me kind of scrolling through the article he's talking about.
Lord have mercy, Snyder. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So like I said, I have a feeling that Warner Brothers really dodged a bullet in not letting this come to pass.
And as we said, I think we might have said earlier, but we definitely said before the show, the Snyder fans are still out in full force trying to get the Snyder, basically release the Snyderverse, go back to the Snyderverse type situation. And no, this shouldn't have honestly happened. I'll be honest. So here's the thing. I appreciate it because we do actually get to see the original vision for whatever it is. It still needed to be edited. Like I said earlier, But I don't think that if you give the fans the kind of power and let them think that they had a say in getting the stuff off the ground, which or making this happen, that shouldn't be a thing. That should not be a thing. It should not continue. Don't encourage them fools.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then we get this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just bad. It's bad. It's painful. I'm just kind of like, I'm glad it's over with.
Yeah, like I'm glad it's out. I'm glad we can finally.
Roddykat spent a lot of time going beat for beat because I didn't have the wherewithal to do that. I just kind of wanted to react to things, big picture style. But I'm glad that Roddykat took up the task and broke down this movie. Mostly the new stuff.
And by the way, still shorter than that goddamn movie. Which clocks in at what 4 hours and like 2 minutes, or 4 hours and 1 or 2 minutes or something like that. I don't remember. What God is that to be better? It's a long ass movie. It's ridiculous.
Hey.
And by the way, speaking of, we said this in this week's Comic Book Chronicles, but I'm bringing this back up again here, and I hate auto playing things. But if you're watching the video, you can see what I'm talking about. 10% of the damn Snyder Cut was in slow motion.
I can't believe that someone was brave enough. I think we talked about this during the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still can't believe someone was intrepid enough. I think that's the best word. Intrepid enough.
Foolhardy would be another word.
Compile all that data.
Right. But also, it's clickbait, so because somebody was going to pick it up, and they did.
Right.
And we're talking about it, so it's. But yeah. Oh, and by the way, folks, when I initially put out the caller that we were recording, I forgot to put in the fact that there is a very much a show notes page that's going to have all the stuff in it, including a couple of articles that we have also talked about during the course of this week's actual Comic Book Chronicle show, including this making of the Justice League video that talks about the scale and that stuff, and even an Easter egg video that I still have yet to watch about supposedly every Easter egg that they caught, that whoever this was caught. What? Sure. So there's that, and all that's going to be in the show notes to this Treasury Edition, including a link to my notes and maybe possibly Agent 70s if he's gonna throw it in a doc and link it or something. I don't know.
Mine. I hand wrote mine.
Oh, okay.
I'm keeping all that out.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no. But in all seriousness, I'm glad this is over with. I'm glad we had a chance to discuss it. As I said, I'm glad that Warner Brothers dodged this bullet. What do you think?
I agree with you. I totally agree with you, because we don't. Yeah. Because as we also what we said, like the tone of this one is definitely darker and grittier than what we got.
Dark.
Yeah, and
dark.
Yeah, and we said that on this week's Comic Book Chronicles also. And yeah, I don't know if it just this needed to happen. So I definitely agree with what you said on that.
Unreal.
But hey, we are here now. It is
right. I mean,
done.
Well, but before we move on and wrap up, I do have to add, and I know that's I've heard other commentators say it. It's nice that Snyder did get to express his final vision, because it was a really bad situation, a bad family situation that caused him to have to step away from the original movie.
Right. He lost a kid. He lost a kid, and that's what had him.
He lost his kid to suicide. So at the end of the day, it's a good story that he was able to finish his vision. It's his vision that I think most people have fault with.
Well, and the fact that, like I said earlier in the show, the fact that he probably most likely added to it, because added to it with the ability to be able to do this,
right?
Because there's no, I stand behind the fact that I feel there's no way he had all of this in his brain. And again, we know he ended up doing, like, they did end up doing like reshoots and stuff and that kind of stuff, just to kind of finish up. But we know some of that stuff had to be brand new.
Right.
You cannot tell me any different.
I agree.
So that being the case, like I said, I may have said this earlier. I can't remember if I said it earlier, but would I watch it again? Probably not. I'm tired of it. I'm done with it.
No. I am not watching it again.
Yeah.
No.
Is it worth watching? If and again, I may have said this earlier. I know I said it before the show, but I can't remember if I said it during the course of the show. But if you have any kind of curiosity of the original, quote unquote, original vision of Snyder's cut, it might be worth it. It still goes on too long. It still needed to be edited. But for scientific, the most basis of scientific curiosities, it may be worth watching.
Right. Just so that you know what vision Snyder had.
Right.
I think that's really what it comes down to.
If you didn't like the theatrical cut, I don't think this is going to change. I mean, it is definitely it's definitely a different movie. It's absolutely positively a different movie. I still don't think it may change your opinion on the way things went. But there it is.
Alrighty.
If you have HBO Max or probably have somebody's account, most likely, you're not really losing anything except for 4 hours.
That's right.
And you can watch it in installments as partially intended, but
yep, it's a lot of time to spend. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of burned through it with only a few breaks here and there.
Oh,
I was surprised that I was able to make it through. Without like stopping and stepping away for an extended amount of time.
Right. So and I think I said this before, but so I watched an hour of it, then watched or either watched a half an hour of the theatrical cut before or after that. I think I might have watched it before and then watched it an hour and then came back and watched the whole thing a few days later again, like from the beginning. So that was stupid on my part, but hey, look, the things we do for you, the Comic Book Chronicles audience.
There you go.
Because realistically, I was not going to watch this, and we have said time and time again on this very show, we were not going to watch this mess. To the point of joking.
If they had decided to put this in the theaters, I never would have gone near it.
Right.
Never.
Oh, I was not definitely, especially whether it was pandemic or not. I was not staying on 4 hours. And granted, I've done it before with even Lord of the Rings is not this long. Even the extended cut of Lord of the Rings is not this far long.
Right.
So, and I wasn't aware I was gonna. Well, I probably would have sat in for that, but no, I wasn't gonna sit in the movie theaters for this. And I know they probably would have had an intervention also, intermission. Lord knows you would have needed an intervention. I mean, you probably needed an intervention if you're going to go do that.
Away his actual thoughts on what needed to be done in this. Which is that they really should have performed an intervention on Snyder and said, "Look, man, we really can't do this long ass cut." But
yeah. But again,
didn't happen.
But again, they were going to cut it in 4. So yeah, they were going to cut it into 4 1-hour chunks to put it on HBO Max, and we laughed the hell out of that because it was like, yeah, that's what the Snyder Cut people got. We got just a whole thing, and they even forgot to mention they cut it into 6 acts, I believe.
Right.
So
6 acts or chapters, I think.
Yeah. I think they say I can't remember if they use act or chapter. Either way, it's the same difference. Because they even broke it down and they're named. Just, again, a little bit more Snyder winking, I'm thinking at that point. Right. But yeah, all of that is the case. And like I said, even if you've sat through this at this point, hour and 39 minutes of this program, knowing all of that, and you still want to watch that thing, even if you haven't already, more power to you.
Alrighty. Well, I think we can wrap.
Yes.
Put a bow on this Treasury Edition.
Yes, and it's not even Green Arrow's bow.
Oh no!
Who could have been, and they could have so much. And again, so yeah, there's so many things that could have been set up by throwing a couple of more extra movies out there ahead of time before going into this. Like, we could have had a couple of Arrows. We could have had Black Canary. We could have had another Lantern. We could have had another Green Lantern movie. Like, yeah, that other one was what it was. But so many things
just a little
happen.
bit of legwork. That's the thing. They didn't want to seem like they were. It's definitely a case of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because they didn't want to look like they were mimicking Marvel's formula, but they wanted to take a gigantic shortcut. But the thing is, in this particular case, you can't take that kind of shortcut.
Exactly.
You just can't. You have to do the legwork. You have to do the character and plot development.
Right. You have to establish some things before you just cobble things together. We have seen in superhero movies where they just throw a bunch of things together and hope it works out, and it doesn't always work.
Especially if you're going to experiment with a connected universe. That's the kicker.
Exactly. Like, they didn't want it to look like they were trying to ape what Marvel was doing, but it was plain to see, even with the theatrical cut, even with Batman and Superman, but prior to it, even with honestly, we could probably all go back to Man of Steel, honestly, possibly.
Absolutely.
So it was just like a little bit more time and effort would have possibly saved it, or stick to animated universe, because everything's over there not everything, most things over there are great and had things properly set up. They actually did some of the legwork in the animated universe,
right?
Still kind of, even though they've kind of gone away, they've gone to the more Elseworld stuff now than they had in the past.
Right. But essentially the legwork that they did was create a solid Batman and Superman universe, and brought them together, and didn't necessarily serve Wonder Woman all that well.
True.
But they definitely developed Green Lantern, John Stewart. They did some Flash development during the Justice League cartoons, and but at the end of the day, those are because of the episodic nature of them. That's why you're able to get so much more character development. Shout out to the Falcon and Winter Soldier, right?
Right, and even with the animated movies, which what I was talking about, they did a little bit more legwork. Like everything that was kind of leading up to the Flashpoint movie. Like they did the whole Batman Superman stuff. They pretty much did the same thing as what you're talking about, and then went up, ramped up to the whole Justice League and Flashpoint stuff, and went from there, and everything just kind of all nice, smooth, and connected. And they pretty much did the same thing where Aquaman and Wonder Woman kind of had a little bit after the fact, and then they started going to other things. Even that was still a little bit better. So, that being said, we are definitely finally actually putting a bow on this doggone thing. But first, we're going to get one more ad read.
And when we've been at it for a while, which particular ad we read, keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or McFarlane DC figures. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
And as we do our own possible flash forward, depending on when you're listening to this, before you watch this Snyder Cut or afterwards, I don't know why you would watch or listen to this before, but maybe we would have helped you make a decision on this, and we hope that we have.
I hope that you appreciated the things that Roddykat did in order to keep us on track going through this, not quite beat for beat, but also just because I definitely would have just started riffing on things I just didn't like about the DCEU in general. So thanks to Roddykat.
Yeah, it's what we do. That being the case, my name is Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt, who was not here, on Twitter. You can also find him at Pop Culture Network on Twitter. Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com also, and his umbrella sites therein. You can also possibly still find him on Byte, comic reviews, no vowels. Speaking of lingering plot threads that we hadn't figured out what's what on there, that's one of them. Tim DOGG98, the Osiris of this ish. You can find him at Tim DOGG98 on Twitter. You can find him at The Click Nation on Twitter. You can find him at CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. Which now that I think about it, why did I close Twitter? But it's fine because I don't think anybody, said anything. But it's fine, But you can definitely go at the CB Cron and be like, hey, we like the show, that kind of stuff, and I'm not gonna put questions, comments, all that kind of good mess there, as well as our other two aforementioned social media sites. But also you can find Tim at Comic Book Resources, where he's at cbr.com, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
And that is the website, if that hasn't been perfectly clear but at this point. You can also find this here podcast on your other, off a day and just all screwing it up. You can find us at your podcast personal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You can also find us recording live every Thursday night, which we're recording on Saturday. So, thanks for Agent 7 to coming out, for spending time to come out for this. But on Thursday nights, 9:30-ish p.m. on either the YouTube channel of The Click Nation, that's youtube.com/The Click Nation, that's TheKliqNation, all one word. Also, you can find us streaming at the same time on Twitch, twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and click on the notifications so that you get notified when we are on.
Yes. And thank you to the new follower on Twitch, which is someone I know of, and I'm not going to pimp them out here right now because this is, they're not sponsoring us. But shout out to Kitty Cat for real, because she's a real one. I love her. Also shout out to Cammy, who also came by, a friend of mine, also who came through, and anybody who was lurking in the chats, in any of the chats that we had opened up.
There it is.
Yeah, that is it. Like I said, join us this coming Thursday, because this should be coming out probably, I don't know, by the time you hear it, it'll be before our next actual show, where we will be going through the comic books of the week again, and talking about the second episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I'm almost pretty certain we have both seen.
Yes.
And I will go ahead and say it here to timestamp this a little bit. The first 3 episodes of Invincible, the Amazon comic book show, well, the Amazon published
animated show,
animated Invincible comic cartoon show.
Right.
Cartoon show.
And by the time we do our next show, I probably will have watched Godzilla vs. Kong. So there'll be a plethora of things to talk about.
Actually, same here too. Same here. Yeah, because it'll come out on the 31st.
Exactly.
And we'll be recording on the 1st, which was when Outriders comes out. Yay, it has nothing to do with comic books. But there probably is going to be an Outriders comic book out at some point. Regardless, so we will have things to talk about on next show. Definitely Falcon Winter Soldier, most likely Invincible, and probably a little bit of Godzilla vs. Kong.
You got it.
And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe